All right. Check, check. Can you hear me now? So, without further ado, we're going to welcome the candidate to the screen. I'm pretty sure he's anxious, like I am. I love the Really Charlie podcast and my guest.
Good evening, Charlie. How you doing, my man?
Mr. Grace, how you doing? How's
I'm
things,
doing
man?
well, Charlie. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, my man. How's it? Everything's well?
Yes, yes.
Good, good.
Well,
And Charlie, you're doing a great job with the podcast, man. From days you were an officer to community activism and just helping the average everyday person out, you're still getting the word out. You're still doing the important things that matter, Charlie. And I just want to congratulate. I know a lot of good people have been on the community leaders, young entrepreneurs getting themselves up and going. So, yeah, I just want to congratulate you on a great podcast, Charlie. Great initiative.
thank you very much, man. Before we start, I just want to, tell you and our audience that share the podcast. It's very important. That way, we get a well-rounded audience, um, and we get to get some questions to the candidate, to the guest, and that's very important. So, everyone, including myself, I want to share this podcast so
Yeah,
we can get the word out.
yeah, folks, get the word out. That's important. He's doing really good things. Having people from our neighborhoods, from our community, have a voice. So let's get the word out.
Sure. The First and foremost, I'd like to commend you for putting your hat in the arena. Um, and it's not an easy task because
Yeah,
you have to definitely be on point every single day.
that's
And
right.
there's many issues out there. So,
Yeah,
but we known each other for a long time. You
yeah.
know, and but I want you to give us a little bio about yourself and why you are. Now, just give a bio, and then we'll go into why you're a worthy candidate. Okay, but just a
Yeah.
little brief bio.
For people who don't know me, my name is Ross Mountain Grace Jr., lifelong resident of New Bedford, Massachusetts. Just tell you a little bit about myself. I have a passion for education. I've worked in the New Bedford Public School Department for over 17 years. I also was assistant director of the Frederick Douglass Unity House up at UMass Dartmouth. So uh, basically, the value system that I have is that I believe in doing everything we can to leave our community and city better um, for our kids and those behind us, to invest in the city. And I think the very best way to do that is working with young people. I have a passion for that. Because when you're able to help a young adult or a child have a sense of who they are, provide a sense of direction, that's how things get better. That's how things change. And I just found the best way to do that is through education. My I was raised with my mother, Vickerwood Housing Projects, just so people know a little bit about me. My father was an activist. He wasn't, he went through some time and stuff. So my mother raised me, and she was a substitute teacher. And she always instilled in us, my siblings, um, that in order to do something, you have to be something, and that comes through hard work, discipline, and the gift of knowledge. When you know something, people can't get over on you. So her being an educator, me growing up wanting to make a difference and a change, I got into public education, and also at the university level. A little bit more background. I started off at the old Norm Mandan, was a school adjustment counselor. I was very young. From there, I went to UMass Dartmouth, as I said earlier, assistant director of Frederick Douglass Unity House. We did programming, um, help kids with homework, financial aid, just a place for them to feel comfortable. And then from there, I went back to the public schools. I was actually recruited by somebody who was an administrator in the schools. And the way the schools used to work back then is they stood in touch with their students and invested them. So you had people from New Bedford coming back. There was a connection between the leadership and the students. So he brought me back in, and I became assistant principal of Connie Academy. I was the very first student ever to become an administrator of Connie Academy. I was assistant principal of Keith Middle School. And at the time, Wally Williams is the principal now, but I was the first black administrator in Keith Middle School. I had left the school department during the past couple of years. Things were tumultuous and took a direction that I didn't particularly care for, and it took a toll uh, um, on my health. It took a toll on the way I was viewing public education, and so I since moved on. So the reason why I'm running, Charlie, and I hate to be long-winded, is
Nope.
I never wanted to
Cool.
get into politics. Um, yeah, I was, I never saw myself in that light. People started asking me. Um, People were saying that there's no real representation, and all good people up there except people who haven't like really been in the schools to like have a voice. So a good amount of people asked me, and I ran last time, and I'm running again this time. We lost by a little bit last time, Charlie.
Yeah, it did. You ran a good election, and the your experience is there.
Yeah,
Your your life skills are there. Your experience is there. You definitely have an understanding, especially when you're confronted by a, a a bunch of things. I call it a triangle, especially when
yeah.
I and the triangle is a student, a parent, and the teacher.
Oh yeah,
You know, and you can talk to all three parts of that with an
yeah.
understanding. And so the what are some of the things that you first want to look at, as a candidate, and if you get elected?
Um, I'll be honest with you. I think the very most important factor that I'd be bringing into everything is just that relationship with the teachers. Where a lot of times when going to a school committee meeting, they're talking about what I call the curtains, but they don't talk about what's really going on in the house. So the very first thing I would do is make sure that the particular needs of teachers being addressed. Right now, a real hot, very important issue is what's going on with paraprofessionals and lunch aid workers because they're getting a really um, a pay that doesn't reflect the work that they do. And when you're talking about a paraprofessional, you're talking about especially now in COVID and remote learning. But while I was still there, you're talking about the kids who are working with kids who learn differently or who may have had a so-called disability. The parents were working with them doing just as much as the teachers. They were doing lunch duty, they were doing traffic duty, they was interacting with the families during appropriate times. And so now with remote learning, there's times, and I've spoken with parents where they don't have a contract, so they're fighting for a contract right now, and they work for respectable, paying for proper training. And so you literally have a situation where the parents haven't been trained, and when teachers are absent because the parents are protected, they're doing some of the classroom sessions as well. So that would be something that come November or even this time next year, if that's still going, that's a very hot button issue. Like I said prior to that, making sure that there's a real voice that's on the school committee of people who know the teachers, who know the cultures, who doesn't just rubber stamp things. And again, that's not to speak bad about anybody on because the school committee people are some pretty fine folk. They're decent people, except I think you see through a different lens when you've worked and walked in the building and you still have those relationships with educators. So those are some of the hot button issues that I'd like to address as soon as I get in. Safety issues. There's a big conversation. I'd love to have a conversation about school resource officers. There's a lot of discussion about that, and I have my opinions on that, and I'll be making those clearer if that's a point of discussion. Um, as the election draws more near. So those are some of the three things, and also making sure, Charlie, that administrators are doing the right thing. With the school committee again, this isn't to hold anybody's feet to the fire, but I saw, especially in the prior years, and we're not talking about the past because there's much better leadership now. Except I saw what can happen when you have uh, a leader with an agenda, whether it's from the state or whether it's personal, whatever, can push administrators to do things that they know are ethically not right. So, I just be in the buildings and making sure the best that I can that the teachers, the people in the classrooms, the paraprofessionals, the workers, the blue collar people, I want to make sure that they have a voice, and that's what I'd hope to do, Charlie.
Good. The as you initially, got started and wanted to run, and now, what's going to be the difference between last time and this time, as
Oh,
far as that what you lived and learned,
yeah,
through your last campaign.
yeah.
Um,
Um, Experience. The first time we really didn't start because I wasn't sure if I was even gonna go for it. Um, we didn't really become official till we'd had the signatures that we needed, necessary amount of signatures. Once we got that, there was just a huge learning curve. You're dealing with the OCPF, that's the Office of Campaign Finances. There's a lot of regulations. Those are things we were learning about. Working with the banks that do you best for your accounts and all that. Just learning about the fundraising, which is much different this time around. And I mean, small things like ordering signs and placing them in strategic places. These are all things we've learned that we already have built now. Like we have a website which you can check out. It's through my Facebook page. We already have that built. We can accept donations online now. And again, we were able to do that last time, but it was all last minute. So we're just prepared. We know what's ahead of us. So we're starting much earlier this year. We're getting the word out, and then we're going to get the signatures up and done, and then just do things to get our message out. And again, you had mentioned earlier that the triangle, and that's something we use at Connie, was called the triangle of trust. Is too often, even to an extent with the private schools, the Elmer Mars, the Votex, whatever, the charters, whatever. Sometimes we're all pulling different directions, child. And what it all comes down to is families, children, and schools. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants their child to have a better opportunity at life and to go further ahead than what we did. So when everybody's working together, we pull that in that direction, Charlie. So, um, that's a value system that I bring in, and I think that I'd be a decent conduit because I worked in the schools. I still know the community. I'm still out and about, and I have children of my own who went through the schools. So
yeah, take
that would be kind of our agenda.
yeah, it takes a lot of stamina to
Yeah.
be to once you accomplish that title. And people don't realize that that each school, from elementary to middle school in the city of New Bedford, is equivalent to the population of some towns. When you
Oh
just
yeah.
figure population students could reach up to 1,500 sometimes.
Yeah.
At some points. I remember at one point there was population at Hayden McFadden was bigger than Keith Middle School,
Oh yeah.
and
That's right.
and
That's
that,
right.
and that was an elementary school. So
Yeah.
with that being said, that so each student has some kind of has a parent attached to them. You
Right.
know, also has maybe a
See.
foster parent and a
Right.
counselor.
And
Go
Charlie, you
ahead.
see, you know what that comes down to? That comes down to the school culture, the school environment, and it's important that a school, whether it's a big school or a tiny school, it's important that the school reflect that particular community. All schools can't have cookie cutter models. So when you're talking about bringing the families in, it comes down to the leadership in the school. And where's our focus when we're an administrator? Is all we're thinking about is getting highest MCAS scores possible, not taking consideration poverty, substance abuse, and all the other factors that skew those numbers. Is my attitude as administrator just to write teachers up or spend more time in their classroom than shaping the environment of the building? So it goes to another thing that was really important. At Connie, we had a strong culture. It came from Dr. Watts, and many of us held it down. I'm not sure how it's doing now. Um, but when you have that type of environment and that comes from the leadership in a sense of value that they have, what they believe in, what they got an education for, spread that to the teachers and the families. And so when a child has a different learning style or the parent is going through whatever, that school will have their finger pulse on the needs of that community and the needs of the people who come in. And what's going on is um, again, and I think we're making some progress. I think things are getting better from what I understand. But every school has become so focused on testing that it's almost like a machine. It's like we're just manufacturing test children, test taking kids, as opposed to creative thinking and creative thought. And when kids have creative thoughts and creative ideas, and the teachers have them, it flourishes throughout the building. So, in terms of meeting family needs from different circumstance, whatever they may be. It's important that the school have an environment culture that's aware of those needs and works with them when whoever walks through those doors.
True. Now, this school year, you got the virtual learning. You know, students got that, and it's talk about perhaps having MCAS testing. Isn't the school
Yeah,
year going to be shorter? I mean,
yeah,
it's so. What's the purpose? You know yourself the preparation of the
yeah,
MCAS. It takes all year.
yeah.
So and there's there's no way that virtual learning was able to focus
It,
on the.
there's
Go ahead.
there's no way, and it goes ever since high stakes mandated testing came in. It pushes against the common sense things of how an administration runs, how a citywide district runs, and how buildings run, because from what I understand and what I believe is right now they're just trying to make sure the kids are going in to make sure those test scores come in, and the rationalization of taking MCAS so they can is so they can measure the decrease in learning. But my point is, MCAS shouldn't be utilized as that type of tool because it doesn't, number one, tap into the different learning styles and different ways of kids learning. So now you compound that with the fact that these kids have been remotely learning or being in a hybrid model for the bulk of school year. They're not getting the same continuity and consistency, the repetition, and the same skills that they would get in a classroom of a full year of being in class. And again, the teachers have done a great job with the remote learning. I've seen some of their sessions, I've spoken with them, but I don't think there's any replacement for the kids being in um, the building. And right now, the New Bedford is just moving out of the red in terms of the uh, rate of COVID. So why push the kids in with 2 months left, 2 to 3 months left? Why rush in the end? We got to get kids back into the building, and they do have to be ready for September. So I do understand all that, except that it's coinciding with the MCAS testing. I just think that um, that would just raises concerns with me that I would address.
Um, Now, a lot of people have finally caught up to the essence of understand the essence of voting and casting your vote within the last few years, and that I also um, lost my train of thought here when we so as they're naive to elections and voting and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
They also naive about how the school committee runs. Now,
yeah,
when does the meetings happen? Can you give me a little kind of um,
yeah.
what does school committee do? I mean, as far as their central role and what they do for the school
Yeah,
department.
well, the school committee, in terms of logistics, they meet it's usually about once a month, early around 6 o'clock, um, usually on a Monday, I believe it is. So that's logistics, and they discuss basically everything that needs, whether it's they have to approve budgets, um, they're heavily involved in the superintendent search. Recently there was a new head cafeteria manager in, and they interviewed that person. And now we're talking about going to a different model for lunches and school food. So the school committee has a voice on that. So any major issue that involves, city budget or just decisions administratively, they usually are done in conjunction with the school committee. The chairperson of the school committee is Mayor Mitchell. Is the mayor, and so um, they converse, vote, come with consensus, and then work with the superintendent. So the school committee has a good amount of influence of what does happen in the building because um, theoretically, as you want the community more involved, giving input to the school committee. The school committee works in conjunction with the mayor and the superintendent, and then it all translates into the schools. So it's a leadership position that influences the policies and the way the buildings run. It doesn't handle the day-to-day operations in the building, but it shapes the umbrella in the environment that the schools do operate in.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
Just
again,
to,
not too. I mean, and again, just because it is campaign season, I think that my voice on there would be valuable. And again, they're great candidates. We're not gonna, you know, say anything bad about anybody up there because these are real good candidates. But I think what does make me unique is that in those conversations with the mayor and the other school committee members, I'd be bringing in the experiences of the teachers, the one-on-one conversations. I'd be in the buildings. I'd bring my own experience. So I think that shapes things a lot different than if you're reading a report or you're hearing about something. Um, it's different when you've actually um, lived it and your good friends, still working there.
it's so true. The so everyone, welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. Here through StreamYard, Anchor, Facebook, YouTube, and I just want to let you all know that it's very, very important that you share this podcast, so the audience becomes a little bit broader, and we can actually get some questions, some personal questions answered um, by Ross Grace Jr. and and that way you can actually understand and know where this man's coming from as far as his uh, his ambitions to be a school committee member. So
Yeah.
share. The, and you know you're still working with kids. You're still doing what you always done,
Yeah.
uh, and you're still kind of still around that education. You're still teaching them, still mentoring them, and that's very very important.
Thanks,
Um,
Charlie.
and
And what I
you know
also do too, Charlie, is because the program that I work with is it's a DYS program. Um, it works with older kids who are got themselves into situations. We try to help them make better decisions and guide them. But a lot of those kids are from out of the area. So what I also do is my passion is I coach little league baseball, and so that way I get a chance to give back to the kids in the city, and that's always a blast, Charlie. So I coached for years and years, and then as my kids were getting older and they were all done, it became harder to stay committed to it. Life changes, and so so in the last 2 years, I finally came back and asked, there's nothing better than, and it's the importance of, to our families out there. It's convenient just to have your kid on the phone all the time or, um, playing games because they're quiet right here. But there's nothing like having that interaction, learning sportsmanship, the physical activity, learn how to take a win, how to take a loss, learn how to take instruction from mentors and coaches who care about you. Um, and for the adults who volunteer, there's nothing like giving back to the community, and just having that young energy around you and watching that kid get better. So I'm glad to be back into baseball. So that's another thing I stay busy with, Charlie. I don't put in the same amount of work that I used to when I used to manage teams, but I help with the scores, I help with the practices, and I'm part of a great team, part of a great league. So,
some some great coaches down there. I
oh yeah,
definitely want to say that firsthand. That great coaches down there.
thank you, Michael.
Michael says my cousin Ross will I'm sorry will provide leadership, knowledge, integrity, and commitment to and for the youth of this city. New Bedford needs Ross Grace. So and it's so true. They need you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
And again, those are, I mean, Charlie, we've known each other for a long time. I didn't have any political aspirations or ambitions throughout at any time in my life. My plan was to always work in the public schools, but things change. Um, but in terms of politics, that was never. And we tell people, we're an education campaign. We're not a political campaign. We're out there to make sure that educators have a voice, to make sure that the real needs of the families and the real needs of the kids are congruent with what the buildings are providing. And working with schools to make sure that they are more than just test taking machines. So when you hear good stuff like that, reminds me of why we're doing what we're doing and the amount of support, Charlie. The best thing about running is the people who you work with. Um, I just have this really outstanding team of people. A lot of them are former educators, some are parents, and some of them are former students. I've been in the field for a long time. We've gotten older. And so, having the opportunity to bring all kind of people together, share ideas, plan, coordinate, um, it's just a great experience for anybody who might consider running at some point. It's a good experience.
Yeah, it is. Um, you talk about, you didn't have any aspirations for running, but you know, God leads us in a certain direction, and
Yeah,
it was, and now where you see that it's important that guys like guys and men and women like with your character that come in and can be placed in the school committee
yeah,
um, is very very important. So when I ran it, it just wasn't. It wasn't. It was in the back of my mind. You know how we just joke around, joke about it,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden you think about it. And the one
yeah,
thing that
exactly.
this, what this city always likes to dictate, where you should start.
Yeah,
And where you should start is it you got to be comfortable where you started.
right.
You're starting at the school committee. You know, I was a candidate for mayor. Everyone's saying, why don't you run for city councilor? Why don't you run for ward councilor? Well, I thought the to fix the problem that I see, the best opportunity to do that is running for mayor.
Yeah,
Because
you did a great job too, Charlie. You was right there.
it is. Very proud of it, and not sure if I'll do it again, but
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. Never say never.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so um, I remember the debates, that they had with you at the last election, last campaign. They were at the Whaling Museum. You had some on the Bedford Guide, and I'm at Gome School. I'm trying to add to
Yeah,
that too this year. I want to add to it, and maybe I could set up a debate where I do it myself. And But I'm also going to introduce a lot of the candidates, to the screen like you are right now.
yeah.
And but I also want you to know that this isn't one and done. You need to come back on here.
Be happy to,
You,
Charlie. I'm honored to
you
be on.
definitely you come back on and say what you have to, even if it's
Yeah,
just a message.
yeah.
Um, but so yeah, as you run, as you're running for your campaign, and you're the candidate, your family also becomes the candidate also.
Oh yeah,
And they you know they don't want to let you down. They're trying to support you as much as they can.
yeah.
Um, like my family did. Every day I was counting on someone from my family to help
Oh
out,
yeah,
and then you're close friends. So
yeah,
you the let me see. I had Jason Mello on here. He's
yeah.
first time candidate,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. He's from
and
Council at Large, right?
yeah, he's excited too.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to get everybody on here,
yeah.
but
And and
today,
and that and that's what's important, Charlie, because to an extent, I feel like um in terms of the machine of how the city runs, there isn't an investment and there isn't a voice like there'd been in the past for the homegrown um people who live here, who work here, who give here. I just don't feel like there's been like that same type of um venue or avenue to people like to really express themselves. And I think you're that vehicle, child. You know what I'm saying? The
yeah,
city's become very, very top heavy. It's become very much and there are some things doing good, but it seems like we invest more in people who are coming from the outside who do a couple years here, then they move on, make their money, and they go. And it seems like uh, they they're catered to more than or invested in more than the people from the city. And you're giving people a voice, Charlie. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I mean, I saw the with Joshua Davis. You know what I'm saying? Who's working on
mhm,
his health and fitness uh, business. And Rob Mendes. And I mean, countless other Charlie. You're giving a voice to you know, the people from New Bedford, and I think that's been missing. I think you're filling a huge void with that.
Yeah, we have to. New Bedford is always been a place of employment for the whole county. You
Yeah,
know, and even some other counties. You need a job, go to New Bedford.
yeah,
Um, and it's always been a bullet in their resume. You get a job here, you can add it, and then people say, "Oh, you worked in New Bedford. You did this in New Bedford." And the
yeah,
first thing is it's sort of like a little big city. The pot
yeah. That's right.
and so you there's a lot of that. So I'm proud of my city. I know you are, and
Yeah,
we've been in different parts of the country, and I'm glad I'm back home.
yeah. I'm
So,
glad you're back too, child.
hey,
And
so
that's why.
go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, and it's so important because you're bringing up. I mean, all cities and all communities are different, but New Bedford really is unique. We have a unique history. We have fixtures of the city. Families who've been around for hundreds of years. I mean, our blend is very diverse. Cape Verdean, African American, Portuguese, Irish. The Central Americans, the Puerto Rican community. So again, it's a reason why I think it's important to run for school committee because we need um, not just diversity in terms of skin color because God knows that doesn't solve all the problems, but in terms of ideas and reaching out to people. We're a unique city, and when leaders come in who don't understand our culture and just have a finger on the pulse of how New Bedford people, um, how we live out here. If I get on a school committee, I'll do my best to make sure that we have leadership that does understand that, and who knows the city and who hopefully even grew up in the city. We need to invest in our own people, our own kids. Our kids are all leaving for greener pastures. And why? Because the opportunities here are slim, and getting into the schools is made more difficult. So
Yeah, and that's you say that, but that actually was thinking when it came to you. Going through during leaving high school, going on to college, and
yeah,
so the impression was that you were probably going to leave. And because you were educated, well educated, well spoken, doing your thing, and just didn't want to have. It's like you're thinking now. You just want the young folks to come back, get
yeah,
educated, bring that education back to the city, um, and so the I want to kind of reflect back to when you were at UMass,
yeah,
and let's talk about some of the things that you've done there, which I think is very important because that was, I believe, at that time was on the ground level. So
oh
let's
yeah,
let's talk about that.
oh man. So working at UMass Dartmouth, that was a completely different and a completely wonderful experience. I was hired through the Equal Opportunity Office for it was a multicultural resource center. It's called the Frederick Douglass Unity House. And it was founded several years prior and it went through several leadership changes. You had people like Carol McLeod, Everett Hoagland, Dr. Tom Manuga, Dr. Bruce Rose, all these people who helped establish it. And the purpose of it was because, especially, during those times, when you're a student of color, going into a predominantly white institution, sometimes for a lot of the students we had, that was the first time ever being something like that. So um, it started off like as a safe haven where you could have cultural events. That the kids would do poetry in there. We'd organize events where they would do dances and stuff. We'd have at the time, we'd have different potlucks where people have different groups of food, and we worked with kids on homework. But so that was all established years to me coming, and then I'm not sure what was going on, but I guess it kind of flatlined. I think the students just weren't going by as much for whatever reason. And then, you have vultures saying, all right, then what do we need a resource center like that for? It's just divides people. So I don't want to say that it fallen down, but I know that they needed a change. So I was still very young at the time, and I was working as the a school adjustment counselor at Normandan. And I was recruited by UMass Diamond. This is how things were done then. People would know who you are. They pay attention towards the community. It wasn't all just electronic. You had people who followed you, you know what I'm saying? So they'd go and recruit you. So I was recruited to go to UMass Diamond. And then I got an interview. Um, and I did well, and the students interviewed me, and then I became assistant director. And we did all kind of cool things there. We had, our job was to work with all the student of color organizations. That's the Cape Verdean Student Association. That's the United Latino Society. We had a males group called I Am My Brother's Keeper, a women's group called Sister to Sister. We had the African Caribbean Club, HASA, Haitian American Student Association. So what we did was we did our best to make sure that they were doing learning in some of the schoolwork, except we were doing it in activities. So the learning became a living, breathing thing. It wasn't just like sitting in front of a book. So we'd have different guest speakers who'd give lessons on different global and local dynamics. They'd come in and talk with the kids. We'd have what's called little fireside chats, and we'd have small amount of kids there, and just a different resource person come in. The police came in and talked to the kids about what that experience was like. Different people from different departments, so the kids were familiar about what's going on at the university. Um, and we had people from the community come in. We was like a resource center for them, and we had it going really, really, really well. I mean, it was the hotbed of the campus, and then we started having more and more white kids started coming, and we'd have chess tournaments. We just kept it exciting. It was a live, vibrant place, and it was very cozy. And again, it came from the roots of the people who had established it, and I just always saw my role there as just trying to keep it going. And I think because I was young at the time, and I still had um, that that fire and passion. I think it related a lot to the students because I was young, and so they mobilized and organized, and I left there for a few reasons. New Bedford Public School is re-recruiting me again because that's just how it was. Dr. Marlene Roddick, God bless her soul, came to see me, and that's why I considered going back. Um, I had. I didn't have an issue with this. I was having some problems with the leadership there at the time, and this became a to-do. Um, the students rallied behind me, even though I was leaving. They knew I was going to Unity House. And sometimes you have people who are in these positions and they spend all their time at their computers typing out what they did and making things look as if they're not the ones doing it. If you work at a university with active students, they see that and they see the people who are on the front lines. So I ended up leaving, and that was interesting. I speak to some of those students, they'll tell you what happened. And then yeah, then I was right back in the public schools. But UMass Dartmouth was wonderful, and it was cool working with kids from all over the world, all over the nation, and it was nice seeing Unity House grow and foster it and become a place where where all the think tanks were coming and the big wigs were coming to see what's going on there, and to see the kids learn and challenge the system, not in a negative way, except intellectually and just embracing the culture. It was, yeah, the Unity House that was one of my best experiences.
Yeah, it's I remember when good times.
Yeah.
The um yeah, I won't I want to something that bothered me when you mentioned about administrators kind of getting involved and kind of nickel and diming over things, and something that disturbed me was Harvard University and Cornell West. But we have to
Oh yeah.
talk about that later. That
Oh
was
yeah.
crazy. One of the greatest
Yeah.
philosophers that I've known in my lifetime, and
Oh yeah.
so it's crazy. But one of the
The-
Facebook
the-
users said Mr. Grace is one of my favorite teachers I had years ago, and I can't
Thank
see.
you.
We got another one here, and I'm just trying to make sure we
Thank you.
focus on Ross Grace Jr. Gene Rose, love Ross. He's a wonderful mentor.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Miss Rose, you're also a
Yes.
wonderful mentor
Yes,
too.
you are, Miss Rose.
Yes,
And
yes,
and there's something to be said about why we do what we do, Charlie, yourself included, the gender bells, the arrogant, just there's something to be said about what people have done before us. And I remember, the Jack Custodios, the Manny Costas, God bless their soul, even, 20th century Eddie Johnsons, what I mean, the Pocky Graces. There were people who kind of paved the way. And we don't have everything, we don't have a lot. But there were people who paved the way for us to make sure that we as a society and we as a community um, help America reach its full potential. And that's being part of the process, and that's being an agent of change, and that's giving a voice for those who don't have voices, and make sure that people who look like us or grew up like us, Charlie, are still carrying on what was given for us, because it didn't just come overnight. People literally died, and again, that's why public education means so much. People literally died for integration to end segregation. Women gave their lives so that little girls can go to school. Um, because people realize that when you learn and your mind grows, there's no limits to you. You know what I'm saying? There's no limits, and so people fall for that. And it's a major, major reason that I believe in education as a way to transform and to make society a better place.
So true. So true. Fernando Oliveira, childhood friend
Okay.
of mine, says, he said, I am a Bay Village area Portuguese slash Cape Verdean. Excuse me. Let me start over here. I am a Bay Village area kid. He grew up there down the south end, close to my home. Portuguese
Yeah.
and Cape Verdean, we all got along. The neighborhood got along. We need more police in our neighborhood, and we need more programs for the children. So true.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
just want to give you a story about myself and the Oliveira family, Pacheco family. We all got along. All coming from different parts of life, and but to sit down and I remember going to the Pacheco family. Mom, you kind of
Yeah.
saying, hey, you guys hungry? You want something? Giving us something to eat. And the same thing if they came with us. So we do miss them. Everyone wants to give that time and that era a bad name, but I wouldn't trade it.
Oh yeah.
I can trade any time in the world to be brought up as a young kid, and
Yeah.
so. But let's see, the best candidate to make a difference. Um, oh, she's not calling me babe. She's calling you babe, man. You must
Well,
know who
we.
that
I'm not sure. I hope.
is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The you know, the I just want to um, keep you out there. Let people uh,
Yeah.
make their own judgment when it comes to
Yeah.
you. I've got my own, and but you know what? For one, educated man doing the right thing, and
Thank you, Charlie.
I can't wait to see the results this time, which should be better because the New Bedford wants to see someone to try once or twice. The first time candidates, they want you to kind of see where your head is,
Yeah.
and so this is your second time around, and hopefully twice as nice.
Yeah. We hope so, Charlie. Like I said, to me, the victory is always in the struggle. I mean, I can't whether we get the numbers or not. It's the experience. It's getting the message out. It's making sure that the teachers are, um, have a chance to like organize and say something. To me that's what it's really, really all about. And again, it's um, we would hope if we do get on the school committee, we'd hope to be transformative. We'd hope not to just be somebody just sitting at a chair and voting yay and nay, except to help expand what we currently do. Most teachers know the issues of high stakes mandated testing, but we just go with the flow right now. You know what I'm saying? And so I would like to utilize that position if I were to get on, if, um, to challenge those things and to make sure that teachers are having a voice and parents as well. We're talking about this MCAS testing. People are organizing more and more so because there's very little credibility to measure the growth, the development, or overall academic standing isn't reflected in MCAS testing. It's simply a test taking tool that comes from larger corporations that the city buys their money off of. I mean, state buys their money off, buys off of them, and then it translates down to our kids. And that's what there's constantly different models of learning. And these are all big businesses putting their hands in the public schools, and those are things we'd like to address. If they work, then that's fine. We'll go with them. But if it's doing things that we know are adverse to the overall growth, the educational, social development of children, if we know that, and it's utilized as a tool, as a punitive tool to punish teachers, and we know that, but we're just going with it, then that's not cool, you know. So if I were to get into me, that's something we would definitely address.
So true.
So we look to expand what goes on in the school committee instead of just again going there and yay nay. You know, we like to have very real conversations.
Um, Shakira Gonzalez says, Mr. Grace taught me to keep my goals higher than what's expected of me, and I'm better than what just expected. I'm better than what's just expected, which is so
Yeah, no,
true.
hey, let me tell you, Shakira is incredible. She was there when I was a young guy just getting out of grad school, you know. And she was one of those, just one of those kids who you could, at times she was a kid, she's an adult now. By the time, you know, she had that energy, she had that fire in her eyes, you know, to do well. So Shakira, I'm very proud of you. And I still see her as an adult here, man. I know she does a lot of good things with the community. And, um, you know, so thank you, Shakira. And we all, you know, even as we get old, we have to constantly set something about us to keep reaching towards. I have to remind myself of that all the time. We have to constantly have goals. We have to constantly reach a little bit higher than what people expect of us, and sometimes more than what we expect of ourselves, and that's tricky too.
So true. Um, Miss Rose has a comment here. Said Jack Custodio was woke long ago. He was instrumental in getting me on WBSM hosting a talk show Sunday mornings. I really didn't want to do it. We met several times, coffee, and spoke about our obligations to help one another to and educate when one can. At the time, I began advocacy group in the 80s to teach single parents to advocate for themselves regarding visitation, child support, and issues. Um, yeah, he definitely was a spark in a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of people's lives,
oh yeah,
and he was going to keep some people honest.
oh yeah.
They try to
Uh,
do a lot of things. And go ahead.
he was a fierce advocate, especially in public housing. Make sure that people had respectable homes. Um, and he actually, believe it or not, Charlie, I first met Mr. Custodio. He was working at Connie Academy as a so-called teacher aide or to our teacher, Miss Janice Fernald. And so he's working in schools. And again, it just drives why education is such a passion for me, you know? So
So true.
thank you.
Uh,
I
Attention,
see these
people,
wonderful
vote
words.
for
Thank
Big
you for
Brother. Right? Yeah, yeah. It means a lot. Words
thank you.
words just keep you motivated. And sometimes people don't say nothing. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that people are saying some nice things about you. Well deserved. Charlie, if you have time, let's see, ask Ross, does he think the DOE, sorry, they should skip the
Yeah.
MCAT this year? And we,
Yeah.
and we, go ahead, Ross, I'll let you go first and I'll
Yeah. Yeah.
compound on it.
Charlie and I did touch on that earlier. I'm an
Yeah.
adamant person of um, I'm not in favor of MCAS, period. It was a major point of contention that I had in the administration when I did work there. I just didn't place it as a sincere form of a child's growth, overall development, effort, um, mode of learning. You know, it's simply a test taking tool. So that being said, I do think it's being overly pushed right now because we're because of COVID. They do want to integrate the kids back into the schools, and I am not opposed to that. You know, we do have to keep our finger on the pulse of the safety level, and are the numbers going down, which they are right now. COVID numbers are going down, but we do have to be cautious of that. Except pushing them at this time of year with MCAS, you know, Charlie and I were talking about how that just seemed a little bit peculiar. So I'd be uh, uh, ultimately in favor, clearly, that we shouldn't be pushing MCAS at this time. And the school committee did take a stance on that. So I do have to say they did the right thing, and they're pushing back against it coming from the state. So the school committee did the right thing, and I would definitely be on that side. Definitely.
Yeah. And they talk about it, they want kids to get kind of, you know, get them back into the classroom,
Yeah.
get easy,
Take
And how do you do that when you put a
See,
big old test in front of them?
right. Charlie, it's basically going to be like going back to September. And anybody who's worked in the schools know how difficult it is from kids, even though there was a hybrid model and there was a remote learning and there was that blend for some of them. Some of them haven't been to school all year, for a long, long time. And for kids who are used to going in just on Monday and Tuesday, whatever, that's a whole transition. So now the teacher's not just going to have to manage their lessons, manage the attendance and all that. The entire model is going to have to shift to reacclimating hundreds of kids back into the building, settling them down, expectations, routines. That can take in and of itself, if you're going to do it properly, for them to actually learn 3 to 4 weeks. So it's just seemed kind of like force fed to me. And I
Yeah,
mean, unfortunately, in the schools, we see that a lot. We don't always make common sense decisions. We don't always make the decision that's based upon the needs of kids. Um, and that's a problem because it hinders learning, and it hinders the school being a real partnership with the families and communities in those neighborhoods.
so true. Well,
Yeah, and again,
you
even with the good
gotta
leadership that we have now, I'm sorry, Charlie, but you know how I get with this. Even with I believe to be a good superintendent, who I hear only good things about, as a whole, as long as we're beholden to high stake mandated testing, we are doing something wrong. It trickles throughout the entire building. It impacts um, how the principal thinks and how they view the building and what their priorities are, which is then impacts who they're hiring, who they're bringing in. It impacts teacher morale because these teachers are all highly educated, highly creative, and some schools will give you more latitude or more, uh, you know, uh, flexibility to teach a lesson in accordance to those state mandates, but some are very rigid. But teachers
mhm.
should have as much creativity to utilize what they've learned based upon their education, their experience, to make it relative to their kids and measure
So
kids through growth and development, not just through very arbitrary numerical systems on skewed results from testing,
so
overly
so
testing.
some some of the best and favorite teachers of everyone is usually that teacher that can use their discretion and get the job
Right.
done,
Yes.
and work with one on one and figure, well, I'm going to do this for Ross, I'm going to do this for Charlie,
Yes.
I'm going to do this for
Yes.
Susie, I'm going to do that, and then they get the job done. So,
Yeah.
fine gentleman here, Devin Burns, says
Oh, yeah.
you can hear his passion in his voice, and he brings in all that experience. This is an easy vote for me. And I
Hey,
love that
Devin is a
dude.
great, yeah,
Yeah,
great, great
yeah.
man. For all our people out there, support local businesses. Um, and people like the Devin Byrons, who work at Destination Soup, they invest in our community. Um, they stay active and vigilant what's going on. So when you have a partnership between small businesses and the community and people who are interested in making a difference a little bit at a time. I mean, there's so much potential in the city, and so Devin was kind enough, as well as other small businesses, to donate to our fundraiser because it is COVID, Charlie. Our fundraising campaign is in a much different space than last time, so we're doing everything online. We're selling calendars with some really nice gifts. So if you want to check out my Facebook page, you can either go to Ross Grace Jr. or Committee to Elect Ross Grace on Facebook. You can find out how to enter. All the money goes strictly into outreach because that is important, people. We do got to get the word out. I'm known in certain parts of the city, and our numbers reflected that in last election, but there are other people who don't know Ross Space as well. So we got to get the word out. So your donations help. Getting involved in that calendar and having a chance to win a nice gift. It's a raffle from April all the way through the end, and we're raffling off gifts. So if you want to do that, that helps out the campaign. Um, but what we're really, really hoping for, Charlie, is just making sure that, um, that there's, and I'm repetitive with this, that there's an actual and experienced voice who isn't just there for a political agenda, who isn't there for a means to an end, but just to try to make sure that our schools are doing the right thing by the educators and the kids. Because when a teacher is happy and they feel good about where they're working, it translates into the student. If the teachers are leaving every 3 years and the turnover remains what it is, and teachers don't have a chance to develop that relationship, that culture, and create that environment, it impacts the learning of the children. And our education for our kids is everything.
So true.
It's everything, Charlie. So,
Shakira said that some kids are just not great test takers.
Yeah,
I remember failing multiple. I'm going to put it on the screen here so I
yeah,
can read it a bit better. For some kids are just not great test takers. I remember failing multiple exams as a kid. One teacher kept me after and talked, had a talk within
yeah,
the talk, answered every question on the exam without multiple choice part,
yeah.
and she graded me on an after school talk as the exam,
Right.
which is, you know, and
There was that
it,
flexibility back then, Charlie, and that's what I'm talking about. She just brought up an excellent example because some kids you can know all the material, but if you're one of those kids who freezes like a damn in headlights, if you have anxiety, or say you didn't eat that night, you know what I'm saying, the night before the test, or your family's fighting, we're dealing with some type of substance abuse. You know what I'm saying? That stuff's all going to impact the test, and those things literally shape our kids' future right now. So that's why I feel like those high stakes mandated testing isn't the way to measure our kids' success. So she nailed it, and there was a time like that too because I didn't test well. I wouldn't have my master's degree if it was just all test taking. I was a writer and a speaker and this and that, but there was a time very similar situation what Shakira had. I did very poorly on test. The teacher understood my learning style. He let me come in after school, and it was a verbal test and I nailed it. So I had the information. That's like some of these kids now. I just didn't perform well on the test. So
so
how are the schools heading in the right direction if kids have information, creativity, and energy and desire to learn, and they're being measured on something that they might not be adept to?
and you know what happens is wording in the questions,
Oh yeah,
um, the wording comes out a certain way, and it looks like it's instant confusion, and that's, and and what happens is when you end up having a one on one with a teacher, talking, and they can they
yes,
can actually make you allow you to comprehend it in an easier way by them
yes,
speaking. Say,
yep,
hey Ross, this is that,
right,
and so, but
yep. Yeah.
um,
And you know the thing, and again, Shai, why I'm so passionate about like education because there's so many things I learned from kindergarten all the way to grad school that I couldn't tell you anything about. You know, I work with the kids in the program right now, and they're asking why do we have to learn this in math? I mean, why do we have to learn this strategy or whatever in math? And I'm sitting there like, yeah, guys, you say the same thing. Why do you? There's so many things that you learn that you may use, and it all helps you grow. It all helps you develop. So I'm not throwing anything out of that, but the thing that I remember most about my teachers is I remember in second grade, and Miss Lopes, Miss Dorothy Lopes, she had this mirror, and above it it said, "I am special," and "Yes, I can." Like
mhm.
I remember that, and you're taught at that age. See, it wasn't about the test taking skills. It was taught that you can be what you want to be if you work hard enough. You know, they focused on the hard work. They focused on the effort part of it. You know, those were the things that mattered. They focused on the message of you being important. They focus on the message of no matter where you come from. Dr. Waters taught us this. No matter where you come from, you can go somewhere. Those are the things that brought me to, um, the drum major award at UMass Diamond. Those are what brought me to my master's degree. That's what brought me to being assistant principal of Connie and Keith Middle School and, director of YMCA school program. It had nothing to do with the actual content of materials learning. It was what the teachers did for me as a person. And that's, I'm telling you, when I was in the schools, it's being ripped out of the schools. It's being ripped because the teachers are under so much pressure and stress to just make sure that these kids are teaching to this model and that mode and that means. So it affects what the
So,
teachers are doing. And that's why I'm passionate about that.
so true. DC says, when it comes to education and the way Mr. Grace wants education to be taught to our youth, how can you not vote for him? And it's so true. The sincerity is there, and we definitely hear it in all your answers and way and your explanations for and I'm so happy that I got you on board, because this is very, very important.
Thank you,
People are
Charlie.
going to hear you anyways. They're going to hear
Thank you.
you later on, and definitely where you can kind of, you know, elaborate on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Statement here says, just going to read some of these comments to you. It's very important, I feel. Um, Ross is for the students, teachers, and families. He understands and gives his all into making a difference in our community. His patience, kind, and determined to make positive change. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you so
so
much.
It, let's see. The comment: politics are the root of all evil. Evil, and yeah, it's politics are different. It's just
Yeah,
it kept. I didn't want to deal with any kind of. I wasn't a
yeah,
politician, but
yeah.
it got it gets dirty sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yep.
so let's see. We have much support for Ross. He has proven he truly cares about the welfare of our children and the essential teachers who educate them. Here is where your vote counts. It's so true.
Thank you,
Nice, nice
thank
comment.
you.
Um, Kira again. Let's see. Stalker. This girl's on the ball today, man.
Oh yeah,
Says if I didn't have creative teachers, I would have never got out of school with decent grades. Not all kids learn the same, so it's important to identify kids who are not. Um, let's see. Listen and read type of student. I was definitely not. Soon as I know there is a clock on me, I
oh
lose
yeah,
all. It's
yep,
so true. That's
yep,
like I remember that.
yep,
I did the same thing. You know.
yep. And again, and Charlie, I mean, there are, it is important to have test taking skills because there is pressure in life. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. It shouldn't be the high stakes that it is. There are some things in schools where I do understand read for, but like Shakira just said again, you know, that wasn't her best way of learning. So even though it's one tool, that shouldn't be the way to determine whether she's going to move forward in an educational setting or be held back or not receive her diploma. That's what I'm saying is wrong with it. And also what it does to the paradigm shift that is done in public education, and where our value has gone from being very student centered to very number centered. So we're in the wrong direction.
So true. Um, DC says, I believe if the educational system becomes what Ross Grace describes, the flag of excellence would be back flying high, or flying in front of New Bedford High School. I, I,
Thank you.
I always, he brings that up, but I was so proud when that flag was in front of the high school.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, and I was there, so I was part of the process, and it was
yeah.
very, very important. So hopefully we can get many flags like that throughout the city, you know, and we will, because you know why? Because everyone's kind of digging
Yeah,
their heels in the ground. They're ready. You said no, we got to do this for our kids. Teachers, parents, even the students. They're
yeah,
looking to be more educated, and so
yeah.
well, Ross,
Yeah,
I
Charlie.
don't hate to close, and because conversation is good, and
Yeah,
whether we're talking about campaigning, whether we're talking about the community, I
yeah,
love I love this type of conversation,
Charlie.
and it's missed, and someone someone that we both know always mentors talks about how those folk stories
Yeah,
and not being you know um told and listened to, need to get back to that, and I eventually will do that in one of the podcasts where I have about four to five mentors on there, just telling those folk stories of the area. So
so
um
important. And
but
folks, don't forget when Charlie's on, when really Charlie's on, make sure you're sharing it, guys. Like I said, what he's doing is important stuff. Again, it's giving a voice to the average, everyday, hardworking person from our community, young entrepreneur trying to get up off their, trying to get on their feet. For the people who've been active, who've given back to the community, for people who are involved in local political dynamics. Um, Sorry Charlie is given that voice. So spread the word, share the word. It's important, um, because that voice has been. It's just not as it hasn't been as loud as it really should be, and Charlie's doing that, which he always has.
Yeah, I can't wait until the New Bedford light starts hitting the airwaves, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be nice. So, but let's see, nice work,
Yeah.
and let's see what uh, this is. I want in juniors program is up and running. Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Um, I like to. Um, well, we're gonna get guests like even Shakira. Some of the stuff she's doing that you see on
Yeah.
Facebook. Got to
She's
get
doing a
her
great
on
job.
get her on air and where she can kind of talk and broadcast all the stuff that she's doing because it's all needed. So Ross, why don't you conclude? Give a message to the city of New Bedford and all this voting power that's going to come to the ballots. Come November for you.
Well, first and foremost, Charlie, I just want to thank you again and reiterate the important voice that you're giving to so many people. And that's why I am running for school committee. Our messages are very similar. Charlie, what our belief system is very similar. I am running once again, not a political campaign, an educational campaign, not for a political gain or to move anywhere other than where we're going right now. And it's to make sure that there's an experienced person in the school committee who's worked in the buildings, who works with the teachers, who gives a clear and honest voice um, to uh, to that political dialogue. So that's what I'm running, and something completely different. Parents out there, things have been extremely difficult with remote learning, the hybrid model. Um, More than anything else, there's nothing more important than you just believing in your kid, making sure that your child, no matter how age, is the focal point of your life, and that everything that you do as an adult, everything I do as an adult, focus circulates around our children. Everything. So no matter what, don't give up on your child. Advocate for your child. Stand up for your child. And just to my New Bedford people out there, I'd appreciate your vote, but um, just I grew up here. You guys know me, and we are bigger and stronger than what we're showing right now. So get involved, be involved, and if you stumble in this world, you take a fall, get back up. That's going up to my average everyday New Bedford person and keep on moving forward. But we're stronger than what we believe. Stay involved, collaborate, discuss, believe in yourself, and believe in the people who you love and who surround yourself with. And
So
my name's Ross Grace Charlie. Thank you so much, brother. You can check out all my stuff on Facebook, folks.
hey, good. The like I said, this could be part one of Ross Grace coming on the Really Charlie podcast. So whenever you need me to get something out there, you just kind of send me a direct contact, you know, call me, whatever, and we'll get you on. I don't
Thank you.
care. I don't care what the message is. It's about
Yeah.
you. It's about you really telling people how you feel, or really giving out the news that needs to be, um, broadcasted to the city of New Bedford. So,
Thank you, Charlie.
man, all right. God bless.
Appreciate it. Take good
And
care. God bless, Charlie. Thank you, New Bedford. Take good care, people.
all
Take care,
right,
Charlie.
man. Take care. I'll talk to you.
I will be in touch, Charlie. Thank you.
All right. Ross Grace Jr. running for New Bedford School Committee 2021. Um, and feel free to get to his website, newbedfordschools.wixsite.com//grace. He's on Facebook. Just put in the search section, like Ross Grace Jr., and his Facebook page would come up. The this was interesting. This was nice. The comments were great. This is what I'm talking about on the Really Charlie podcast. Conversation with some common folk just to get a message out there. There's some future guests coming on. We got Friday, I got a podcast. Saturday, I got a podcast. I'm just trying to do the right thing and get more people on this podcast. And if you have something you want to talk about, just it's send me a direct message. My email here is reallycharliepodcast@gmail.com. Really Charlie Podcast at gmail.com. You want to get on here, just send me an email or get in touch with me, and we'll make it happen. My schedule's kind of booked during this month. We're going up until the last day. Um, April looks like it's wide open. However, we got some guests in limbo, and some great guests. Some singers, some entertainers, some educators. Definitely some good podcasts coming up. So feel free to go on Anchor. Listen to the podcast on Anchor, Spotify. Go on to my YouTube channel. Click like and subscribe. Sounds like a YouTube commercial, doesn't it? Like and subscribe. It's very important to anyone that's putting YouTube channels out there. And I'll continue to bring this to you through StreamYard and Facebook. As I always say, mask those beautiful faces. Wash your hands, sanitize your hands, continue to be safe instead of being sorry. Love y'all. God bless.